the dripping disdain for these disgusting white rural voters. Just a broad brush on how gross they are with their Carhartt jackets and their beer. That's what you'd have to drink in order to get along with them. Pfft, right? It's certain male gesture is basically being done under the table, is stomach turning. And they are not alone. It's not just the set of and the crew of Morning Joe.
Absolutely. This book, White Rural Rage, is the Democrats' fantasy about why they are losing, because it gives them an alibi for what actually happened, which is that they abandoned the working class, which is now flocking to Donald Trump. And instead of acknowledging all of their failures, which stem from the very contempt that you are pinpointing, Megyn, they come up with this fantasy that the other side are racists or fascists or election deniers or this or that, whatever the insult of the month is, as an alibi for themselves so they don't have to do the hard work of looking inside and analyzing how they lost the working class and how they came to develop hatred for the Americans who we rely on to survive.
They're just, as I said yesterday when they were discussing the Ronna McDaniel thing, they ooze sanctimony. Their holier than thou approach to the news, to Americans, to Republicans is on its sleeve. It's readily available for all to see, and they are clueless about what a turnoff this is to normal people. I mean, I'm not working class. I come from a middle class family, but I'm disgusted by them. I mean, you don't have to be in the working class to hate what they're doing, which brings me to your book. I mean, your book is the opposite of their book, of that book that they were promoting there. Your book does this radical thing of actually trying to figure out who are the working class and what is driving them? What does concern them? Is it all the things that they just listed there? As it turns out, you have found the answer is no.
That's absolutely right, Megyn. Their contempt for the working class, they dress it up as though it is some sort of moral sanctimony or some sort of political ideology. It's just money, right? They're all millionaires and they sit there on their cable news channels and sneer at the people who clean their toilets, right? That's what's happening there, right? Make no mistake about it. That sanctimony stems from the clash between their economic privilege on the one hand and their belief that they are the good guys on the other hand, which don't often go hand in hand. What I found in my book was the exact opposite of white rural rage. I spent a year traveling across America, interviewing working class people in all industries, of all races, religious persuasions, family breakdowns, what have you. And what I found was that whether or not a working class person votes Democrat or Republican, they by and large have very similar ideology and view of the world. First of all, these are the most tolerant people you will ever meet. And that tolerance stems from a number of places. First of all, this country is finally becoming the great nation that we were promised to be at our founding. And that is very important to working class Americans. I write a lot about how they've been abandoned by both sides, by the elites on both sides. These people are so patriotic. They still love this country, even though so many people have given up on them. And they also are very similar when it comes to politics. So one of the major headlines that I found in the book, Megyn, was that the vast majority of working class Americans want basically a total moratorium on immigration, right? Because they understand the truth, which is that these immigrants are lowering their wages, but they also want some sort of government-backed healthcare. They feel like they can't afford good healthcare, and it bothers them a lot. So you see how neither party is really representing them, right? One party has open borders, but we'll talk about healthcare. The other party has the immigration piece, but doesn't have a healthcare policy. On other issues, they're so united, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. For example, I found that working class Americans are extremely pro-gay. I spoke to a lot of Christians who have a gay person in their life who they want to be treated with dignity, but they're very worried about the transgender ideology. They don't like seeing it in sports. They don't like seeing it in schools. They don't want to hear teachers talking to their kids about sexuality. And this really unites both conservative and liberal working class people. In short, what I would say is that polarization is a totally elite phenomenon, Megyn. Working class Americans are so much more united than they are divided.
That is so interesting and just confirms a general feeling. One of the things I love about, we put the show as a podcast and a YouTube, but we are also live on SiriusXM during the day. And so we get such a wide variety of listeners calling in when we take calls. You'll get doctors and lawyers and that, and you'll get the truckers. And they have so many similar views. It's like people who are on the right side, I think, generally are more right-leaning. They have a lot of similar views because I don't think that there's that many. There are some conservative elites, but this elite thing seems to be rather unique to the Democrat Party. I understand the Republican Party fractured because there were too many elites on the GOP side with the Chamber of Commerce and all that kind of thing. But the way things stand today, the Democrats they have the majority of the so-called elites who are lecturing us at every turn. And I think most of my listeners are disgusted by it and see the same problems that you just outlined, no matter what their income is. Just to put a couple more points on it, here's a little bit more of them talking about this, because this is not just MSNBC. This is how the left sees the problem with the pesky Trump voters, the annoying half of the country that continues to try to back Trump and put him in office, and like the problem with the American electorate. Here's SOT 27.
We spent a couple of years after Donald Trump got elected, journalists went to every single diner in middle America to try to talk to red-hatted MAGA folks about what concerned them, what they were mad about. Nobody went to the rural African Americans, rural Latinos, rural Native Americans to find out what they're mad about. And they have every reason to be mad. But you know what they're not doing? They're not overrunning the Capitol. They're not going down to their state capitol carrying AR-15s.
It's so confusing to me.
And nobody treats them the way we do right rural Americans, as though we have a moral obligation to know what they're angry about and to cater to them.
Oh my God.
Do you know what's so funny, Megyn? Is that, you know what Black Americans are really angry about? The open border.
Right.
Right. They would never let them talk about that on MSNBC or CNN, right? They are really angry that the Democrats abandoned them to open the border and welcome in an entirely new slave caste from failed socialist states to do working class jobs. And by the way, that signals to working class people that you are nothing. That's what happens there. When you take in 10 million people to compete with people who clean toilets, which is not actually an inherently bad job if it pays well, you signal to Americans, an American doesn't do this job. Why would we do that to people who work so hard? Why would we tell people who clean diapers of the elderly, right? People we rely on so much to do these hard jobs that you are nothing. An American shouldn't be doing this job. It's so appalling. Contempt everywhere you look, Megyn, from these elites. You are so right.
It's amazing to hear. I love to hear them say it. I love it when they just put it out there. But just to pull out a couple of the quotes, which we ran in the opening soundbite. This is Tom Schaller talking about it. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Most conspiratorial, COVID denialism. I'd love to hear what specifically. They denied that COVID began in wet market, because that's not what happened. They should have denied that. They denied that the vaccine would stop the spread. They were right about that too. They don't believe in an independent press or free speech. It's the white rural voters who don't want free speech, not the elite leftists who are trying to police what we say at every turn on the internet and on college campuses and elsewhere.
There's a psychological term called projection, right? Where you don't want to admit your own faults. And so you see them in everybody that you interact with. And that's exactly what this is. Everything that the Democratic elites try to push onto rural voters, onto the working class, onto the MAGA voter, is true about them. And it's so funny because when I try to convince Democrats, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be throwing these people out, right? They'll say to me, well, don't any of these working class people care that, Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy? And honestly, Megyn, what I heard a lot was it's kind of a threat to our democracy to take the most popular politician in the entire country off of the ballot, right? It's kind of a threat to democracy to wage lawfare against the most popular politician in the country because you are terrified that he is appealing to the very voters that used to be your base. And it's not just the white working class, right? So for example, in 2020, Trump was polling at 8% of Black men. He got 18% of Black men in 2020. Today, he's polling at 30% of Black men. You can imagine how many Black men are going to actually vote for him. He's polling at the majority of Hispanics, which is the majority of that community is working class. I mean, this is no longer a white working class party. The Republican Party now is the party of the working class. And that divide in the GOP is going to be crucial to the future. I mean, Megyn, you get it, right? That there's no returning to the Chamber of Commerce, Nikki Haley version of the party, right? But I think a lot of people are sort of in denial about it. And they have to realize like these voters, these are the best voters because they're the majority of the country, right? If the Republican Party can seize on what does it mean to be working class today and how can we protect these workers and their labor and their dignity, they will have the ruling majority that the Democrats always dreamt of.
Debt. You can go to bed thinking about it. You can wake up thinking about it too. Here's the truth. The system traps you in debt. High interest credit cards and loans make it nearly impossible to pay off your debt, and insane inflation keeps you stuck paycheck to paycheck. Done with Debt can be your lifeline. Done with Debt has an ingenious new strategy to help erase your debt faster and easier than you thought possible. Done with Debt analyzes all the debt options that you qualify for. They know how to reduce bills. They know how to cut interest rates. Their skilled staff of negotiators know how to get debt out of your life permanently without bankruptcy and without a loan. Done with Debt has experts who can share with you strategies for eliminating debt. But you do need to hurry because some debt solutions are time sensitive. Here's how easy they make it. Go to donewithdebt.com. 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 Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.